So lovely to see some faces from probably all over the world. We're just letting you all into the call. We're about to make a start very soon. Welcome, everyone. As you can hear, I'm Australian, so we're coming all the way from Australia and America. All right, I think we'll get going. It's 7 o'clock in the morning here in Perth in Western Australia and 7 p.m. where Robert is. So welcome, everyone. My name's Manisha Blunchley and I am from the Australasian Light Association. And we are giving free webinars every month. So we have another wonderful one lined up for today, and that's Robert. So let me please introduce Dr. Robert Gilbert to you. So Dr. Gilbert is the founder of the Vesica Institute for Holistic Studies. He's located in the Appalachian Mountains in the USA. He's a former US Marine Corps instructor in the field of nuclear, biological, and also chemical warfare defense. He holds a Ph.D. in international studies and was the first biogeometry instructor outside of Egypt authorized to teach publicly. He offers a range of online trainings, including biogeometry and many vibrational health methods. So we're very fortunate to have Robert today, and we've got a rather large audience from all over the world. And in our presentation today, Dr. Gilbert will be summarizing key aspects of light and health, which are of tremendous value for our self-care during this difficult time in the current health crisis. And Robert then will dive in to biogeometry and introduce us to this remarkable energy science. And it's been developed by his teacher, Dr. Ibrahim Karim in Cairo in Egypt. So welcome, Robert. Thank you so much for presenting to us all. And I'll hand it over to you.
Great. Thank you so much for inviting me. So I'd like to start off just by saying that in setting up this presentation today, I was requested to start the presentation with some things that may be of interest to people regarding the global health crisis that we are currently in, things that may be of use. And so the first part of the presentation, I'm going to do an overview of what I consider to be some of the most fundamental aspects of the importance of light when it relates to personal health and public health issues. And I do want to say that I am not a medical doctor and I am not giving you medical advice in the things I'm telling you about, but I am going to tell you about what I feel to be very important developments that I encourage you to research further yourself. But again, I'm not a medical doctor and I'm not diagnosing or treating any illness. So the first part is going to be this overview of light. And then the second part, we're going to get into the biogeometry itself. And I'll make the same type of caveat for biogeometry. Biogeometry, we make no medical claims for. It is really nature's design language. It is the energetic basis of all the activities on the physical plane that we work in, and actually on all planes of existence. It's quite a remarkable and unique science. But again, we're not making medical claims for it. So having issued my caveats, we're going to go ahead and get started. I'll see if I can get the share screen working here. Okay. So what I want to start with is the concept of light as the foundation of all life and all health that exist in our world. So if we start with the concept of the sun is the primary light source. And we should be aware that the sun is actually the foundation of the things that create health on the physical earth and in the human physical body. In addition to the picture of the sun that I have here, I have a cymatics image called Song of the Sun that was developed through the work in Britain of my friend John Stuart Reid. John's work is at cymoscope.com. And what John did is he has, through cymatics technology, the ability to take vibrational imprints from different sources, primarily based on sound, and to make an actual vibrational image from it. So this is not some type of digital simulacrum or a random generator of images. It's an actual vibrational imprint of this vibration that he made from the sun. Interestingly, this vibrational cymatics glyph of the sun from John Reed that you see here has exactly 28 nodal points on the outer ring of the sun's energy, which, for those of you that have trained with me in biogeometry, you'll recognize that the number 28 is a very powerful generator of what we call the BG3, which is the universal harmonizing balancing force. And so, starting with this concept of the sun, seeing if I can move forward here. Okay. We want to then take a look at the way that the sun actually kills the pathogens that would otherwise destroy all life on Earth. So one of the first parts of this, of course, is an ozone production. So in the stratosphere, the production of ozone is reliant upon sunlight, and particularly upon the ultraviolet component of sunlight. And what the ozone creates then is something that acts as a master cleanser. Not only does the ozone help to protect the entire atmosphere of the Earth, but it has incredible abilities to kill pathogens, which it does for the Earth both through a gas and through a liquid. So we're talking about the gas part of it here. The sun is generating ozone in the atmosphere, but in the last 100 years, with modern technology, we've been able to create modern medical ozone generators that, as you see in the lower left, will use an ultraviolet light to be able to transform pure oxygen from an oxygen tank into pure ozone. And so we've developed in modern times medical ozone treatments. Now, medical ozone, many of you are probably familiar with. However, it is not accepted in most allopathic medicine around the world. And some people say that's because it's simply too inexpensive, that you can't patent it. And it's very inexpensive compared to patent medicines. And so in the last 30 years of my researching ozone therapies, I've come to myself believe that the home use of ozone has now become quite easy, quite inexpensive, and it's now a foundation of my own self-care that I do with these particular types of what we consider to be light therapies. So the use of ozone is something that you can learn about to be able to use it in your own home with not very expensive equipment these days. And books like this one, Ozone Miracle by Frank Schallenberger, will give you a general introduction to that topic. On my website, vesica.org, I have a free, very extensive article describing the background of ozone, how ozone has been determined to be able to kill all kinds of pathogens, and its history. And I also go into the things that you would need to have home use of ozone. Now, the image that I have on the right-hand side, Ozone, A Cure for Life, I want to make more people aware of this book. This is something that is a very recent translation from the original Italian. And some of the most incredible application of ozone for healing purposes is taking place in Europe and particularly in Italy. And so this book, Ozone, A Cure for Life, is the first English language source for some of the Italian use of medical ozone during the COVID crisis in Italy. And it was so important that they did a rush project to get this translated from Italian into English at the end of last year. And it has just been published. And so this book is now generally available, Ozone, A Cure for Life, and it gives you tremendous details about how they successfully used ozone for COVID cases in the recent outbreak in Italy. And so these are just some sources to get you started. So tracking where we are in the conversation, we're talking about light for the International Light Association as the foundation of health. And so light, the ultraviolet component within sunlight, actually creates the ozone that gives us a livable atmosphere and can also be applied into the human body and has been proven to kill a wide range of pathogens. In my particular article talking about this on my website, I point out the fact that the effect of ozone on the outer membrane of many types of viruses, including SARS-type viruses, coronaviruses as a general class, is such that the mutation of these viruses will have no effect to protect them against ozone. The mutation may help defend them against other types of interventions, but it cannot protect them against the ozone. So having mentioned now the ozone as one of the first most important aspects of life generation on the Earth, protecting the Earth itself and protecting the human body, then we also have the aspect of the way that the light from the sun generates hydrogen peroxide. This is also something generated through the sun. Whereas the ozone is gaseous, the hydrogen peroxide is liquid. And so hydrogen peroxide has also been used in naturopathic circles for over 100 years, very successfully for many, many different types of applications. At the beginning of the COVID crisis, again, I'm not making any medical claims and I am not diagnosing or treating any illnesses, but I wrote an article that is on my website where I talked about the past history of the use of hydrogen peroxide nebulized into the human lungs. Because hydrogen peroxide, again, as a type of oxygen therapy, is known to kill all kinds of pathogens on contact. And so one of my interests for many, many years has been, how do we actually kill pathogens in the lungs? Because in a lot of mainstream allopathic work, they don't have a method for doing this, which is very unusual. Because if we take a look, for example, at veterinary circles, in veterinary work in the United States, you can do a nebulization of colloidal silver to give to horses and other higher mammals, which completely clears out their lungs, but it is not approved for use for human beings in the United States. And so there are methods that have been developed in mammals to be able to kill pathogens in the lungs. So I encourage you to look into the second sunlight application, the use of the hydrogen peroxide. And again, there is an article on my website about specifically the use of it in terms of the nebulization. Again, you want to watch your percentages with it, no more than 3%. And for people that are highly sensitive, as I describe in the article, some naturopathic circles say it should be less than 3% and it should be buffered through a saline solution. Then I want to talk about the way that the sunlight actually creates vitamin D in the human body. Now, most of you here are no doubt familiar with this. It's getting to the point today that vitamin D is becoming so recognized as something essential for the human body to fight off disease that some researchers are now saying that we shouldn't consider vitamin D to be a vitamin. We should consider vitamin D to, in fact, be a hormone, an essential hormone in the human body. Where does it come from? Once again, the alchemical interaction between the ultraviolet radiation from the sun and the human body. Now, the thing is, because of this, there's been popularized the use of vitamin D to keep ourselves healthy, which I think is a great development. But often when people engage in high-dose vitamin D supplementation, they don't always understand that for the body to be able to absorb and use this, it requires a whole set of other cofactors to be present in the body. And so this is a short list right here of essential cofactors for high-dose vitamin D in the body. Vitamin K, usually you find it as vitamin K2, but vitamin K1 is also helpful. They have two different biological effects in the body. Magnesium, boron, zinc, quercetin, melatonin is really the most important set of these. I go into a lot of detail about every one of these in an online course that I have on my website that's called Crystals and Minerals for Times of Stress. And I just have a note here that in the late 2020, a group of Texas urgent care clinics reported that they had treated hundreds of COVID-19 cases successfully with a combination of vitamin D, melatonin, and vitamin C. And there have been many other similar reports from all over the world. So again, whether we're talking about ozone or hydrogen peroxide in the environment, or the vitamin D produced in the human body, these are fundamental activities of light for health in the human body. And so this brings us to the concept of biophotons. And so everyone interested in light for health should be aware of the field of biophotons that was first developed through the work of Fritz Popp in Germany. And this is, well, now it's around 40 or so years ago. This identified that there were specific, very weak emanations of light from biological tissue in the human body, and that the biophotons create a type of scaffolding for the formation and the repair of the human body. And so literally, what we think of in terms of ancient traditions talking about a light body, every human body is a light body. And with the correct photo multipliers, you can take images of it like you see on the right-hand side of the screen. This is from the Kobayashi Biophoton Lab. Now, in addition to this, we also have the aspect that light works as a carrier wave. It can project an energetic quality from one place to another. So in the upper left, I have an image of a laser light. And a method that was developed in naturopathic circles, must be at least 20 years ago now, was the method of using a laser light and shining it through a vial of a liquid that had some beneficial effect to it. And you would hold the vial of the liquid up in front of an acupuncture point or an energetic center in the human body, and then you would shine the laser light through something like, it could be homeopathic liquid, and you would then transmit through the light the energy of that particular substance, that liquid substance, through the laser light then into the body. And I did something similar in the lower left-hand corner. I do a lot of work with mineral remedies and how people can get more effect out of different types of stones and crystals and things they have in their house. So taking things a little bit further than they often are in crystal circles. The thing is that if the crystals are not properly placed in a location, the energetic field from them does not always radiate out far enough to have any effect on the people in the location. Placement is very important. There's also methods that can be used to be able to broadcast the energy of the stones further. In this case, what I show in the lower left hand of the screen is an amethyst lamp in which there are amethyst pieces all over the body that are then illuminated, and I've added to it phenakite. Phenakite is virtually literally divine white light crystallized into a physical stone. Phenakite is not well known. It has PH at the beginning, phenakite. It's a type of beryl, but it's an absolutely remarkable stone, although quite hard to find. So I created this type of amethyst lamp, including the phenakite, and then used the light to be able to broadcast its energy out further into the space. Now, we should also be aware of what's known as mitogenetic radiation. And now I'm getting into topics that I covered that some of you may have seen at the online conference from the Vesica Institute that was called Waves of Health and Illness. It's still available on my website, vesica.org. But in that particular conference, I talked about the need to expand our paradigm for transmission of health and illness to include purely vibrational methods, which are also related to light transmission. In 1923, Alexander Gurvich demonstrated that if you have the growing tip of a root of a plant pointed toward the axis of a second root of the same type of plant, what would happen is that cell division would begin to increase, sometimes very dramatically. This meant that there was actually an energetic emanation from the growing tip of the plant that activated growth and cellular replication in the other plant. But he found if he put a glass window between the two roots, no effect took place. But if he had a quartz window in place, then the effect still took place. And that's because quartz can transmit the ultraviolet light, but glass blocks it. So he was able to then demonstrate that a natural ultraviolet light radiation emitted from living beings and from growing beings. Many people are aware of this in their kitchen, where they see that, oh, part of my garlic bulb has started to sprout, or one garlic bulb amongst many. And if you leave that garlic bulb there, the others will sprout quickly. So you got to take the one that sprouted out. Why? Gurvich demonstrated, based once again on ultraviolet light radiation back in the 1920s. His work was very well known at the time, although today many people have forgotten about it. Now, very importantly, something I talk about a lot in the online conference that I mentioned, is that in the 1970s, there was a follow-up on the work of Gurvich in Russia by a man named Kazanchiev. And Kazanchiev wanted to take the idea further, not just the light radiation that created an increase in cellular replication, but actually it could also be able to broadcast pathogens, the type of energetic information from a pathogen. And so he adapted the work of Gurvich so that he had one cell culture that had a particular type of toxic pathogen inside of it. In his work, he said this could be a viral infection, it could be a chemical poison, it could be toxic irradiation, whatever. And if it was nearby another cell culture, that cell culture, although there was no aerosol transmission, they're both sealed, that second cell culture could pick up the actual pathogen, even though there had been no physical contact and no aerosol contact. And once again, just like Gurvich, Kazanchiev found that if he separated the two of these with glass, that it did not transmit the pathogen. And once again, that's because it didn't transmit that particular aspect through light in the ultraviolet. Glass blocks the ultraviolet transmission. But if he used a clear quartz window, once again, just like Gurvich, he found this would then transmit the information of that particular pathogen, and it would infect the second cell culture. And so what this is showing is that we have to expand our paradigm for waves of health and waves of illness, which is why I put on that particular conference that I just mentioned. So I think this is an important thing to understand when we're dealing with light, that this type of transmission related to light, related to biophotons, happens all the time. And it works as a carrier wave that could transmit something very beneficial, or it could transmit something very detrimental. It acts as a carrier wave. So I wanted to make people aware of this as a few fundamental things that I think will help to clarify for us how important the work of groups like the International Light Association is, making us aware of how fundamental light is in the creation and the sustenance of health, both on the earth and in the human body. Okay, but I have a very limited amount of time, so we're going to then roll forward into this discussion then of biogeometry. And we should start by saying that the work in biogeometry in modern times explains a lot of the secrets of the ancient Egyptian temple culture. However, biogeometry is a modern energy science developed by my friend and teacher, Dr. Ibrahim Karim from Cairo, Egypt. And it was founded on the basis of discoveries made by French energy researchers back in the early 1900s. So one of the concepts behind this is that we today in modern science deal with two spectrums of energy. The first spectrum is the electromagnetic spectrum. And from my perspective, and also from the perspective of the work of Rudolf Steiner, the electromagnetic spectrum is the sub-physical level. It's beneath the physical. Once light decays below the speed of light, it enters into the electromagnetic spectrum. And all types of energies that go beneath the speed of light then pass through the physical plane and break up to become the electromagnetic spectrum. Above that is what we could call the spectrum of matter itself. And we call the spectrum of matter in modern times the periodic table of elements. But we need to be aware the periodic table is really the spectrum of physical matter itself. Now, one of the things that Dr. Karim will often bring out in biogeometry is that we've created through this a science that is very powerful in instrumental manipulation of natural forces. But it does not take into account what actually creates life and what creates health. And that's actually the level above the physical. That's the vital energy level. Whether your particular ancient culture called it chi or ki or prana or ether, every ancient culture and every ancient healing system up until the development of modern allopathic medicine was all based on the spectrum of these living qualitative energies. And these living energies are beyond the level that electromagnetic equipment can pick it up. So if it was the level that it could pick it up, it would have to decay down to the level of the electromagnetic spectrum. Now, this is a more complex discussion that I have in the conference that I mentioned and in other sources. I'm going to only touch on it here with the limited amount of time I have. But I want you to be aware looking at the very top of this particular illustration, that there is an actual vibrational spectrum here related to light and color that actually refers to all types of subtle invisible energies that cannot be picked up by electromagnetic equipment. And so just as we have the periodic table and electromagnetic spectrum, so we have the universal vibrational spectrum. Using this as a tool, we can detect the specific energy qualities coming from any person, place, or thing, or the energy qualities being generated through any particular healing method, including energetic healing methods, Chinese medicine, Ayurveda. Any type of method will generate a particular energy that can be detected and understood in a larger context with this universal vibrational spectrum. Every one of the bands of the spectrum was given by the French a particular name related to light and color. However, the bands of the vibrational spectrum, light and color is only one aspect of it. That exact same vibrational quality could be manifested through a shape, a geometry, or through an angle, or through a proportion, or through a numerical sequence. All kinds of energetic things will generate these bands of energy. And so, for example, the orange band of energy is what you get if you're doing color healing and you're using orange light. But you could get the same effect through other materials that have the orange band of energy. That doesn't mean that they are visibly orange. So, for example, if you test with the French methods a essential oil like frankincense, you will find that frankincense is full of the orange band of vibration, but there's nothing visibly orange about it. But that orange band of energy is there. So it has the same energetic effect that is similar to orange light as identified in light and color therapy. Again, this gets much more detailed, and I can only touch on it here. But one example of this is that one aspect of the orange band, as used, for example, in the Filipino pranic healing system, is it can purge toxicity out of any energy system in the body. That's how it's used in Filipino pranic healing. And so with that purging the toxic energy out of the body, that's why they then used it within the frankincense to anoint parts of the body to be able to project out of the body the toxic energy, and also contains within it a particular energy that Dr. Karim in BioGeometry calls the higher harmonic of gold. It's an energetic quality that is similar to gold and has an effect of tonification and also connects to higher spiritual sources. So using sacred frankincense as an anointing oil to clear an energy center and then activate it is actually related to the same energetic qualities used in some schools of color therapy with the orange band of energy. Just as we have electromagnetic spectral analysis that you see on the left-hand side, so we can do vibrational spectral analysis with this method developed by the French. And so the early French researchers, like de Balazal, was able to test all types of different water samples or wine samples. And by the vibrational bands that he detected coming from it, he would know where it was from, or if it was healthy to drink or not, or various types of toxins that may be present inside of it, all revealed through this vibrational spectrum analysis. This was then taken further by a gentleman from Russia named Skariatin, who wrote all of his books under the pen name of Enel. And in the writings of Enel, he talked about the way that he used this type of French vibrational research to be able to identify what the vibrational band qualities were for all types of different illnesses, as you see here, and what vibrational bands would then antidote, or be what he called the curative ray for that particular thing. So what we have with the vibrational spectral analysis is moving into the level of classical traditions and their type of energetic healing that can be used to analyze any type of sound healing, any type of light therapy, really any type of bioenergy therapy. There's not a visible color there, but there is a band of energy that can be picked up and detected and analyzed. And then we can understand what's actually happening, and we can actually unify the knowledge of all these different traditions together. Now, one of the other discoveries of the French was something they called the waves of form, or the shape-caused wave. And they found that using their form of energetic analysis, that there were subtle energetics being projected out of, for example, the tools used in ancient Egypt. the Ankh from ancient Egypt is not simply an abstract form to represent life. It's not just a symbol. It actually was found by the French that it actually, based on shape information, broadcast a specific penetrating carrier wave from its base, and had a different type of clearing wave coming from its top. Now, all these things are in old French texts that I go into great detail on in my online series called Vibrational Testing and Healing. And so now we bring in Dr. Karim. Dr. Karim was introduced to this French work in the early 1970s. And he's been doing absolutely incredible work in biogeometry ever since then. And so again, this is my friend and teacher, Dr. Ibrahim Karim of Cairo, Egypt, the developer of modern biogeometry. And so often we say that, if people say, well, what is biogeometry? We say it's nature's design language. It's nature's design language of how nature uses shape, sound, color, number, motion, angle, proportion to be able to create all types of effects on living systems. That's biogeometry. Aspects of this were known to great energetic sciences of the past from a very qualitative perspective rather than the modern quantitative perspective. And Dr. Karim has been able to develop an entire physics of quality to understand the energy exchange through resonance between similar energy qualities using shape, sound, color, motion, angle, proportion. And he also was able to discover that when the French identified their spectrum of these energies, they missed a very important concept, which was, in addition to the polarized energies that they discovered, Dr. Karim found that there is another energy not well known today that is a universal harmonizing balancing force. It is not polarized. It has no opposite. It's not like complementary colors or opposite colors. This is an actual emanation of what we would think of as the unified field. Dr. Karim calls it the biogeometry 3 or the BG3. And it works to balance and harmonize all living energy systems. And so within biogeometry, we have practical methods to detect, differentiate, and manifest many different specific energy qualities. And Dr. Karim developed modern tools, improving on the original French tools in what you see here to be able to detect all these different bands of vibration in the vibrational spectrum that I just mentioned to you. And you can see the close-up of the dial on the top of one of these pendulums here. It's based on the angle created between the two emitter patterns. And that angle, just like refraction of white light in a prism, will create a specific vibrational quality that allows you to detect the specific energy band present from any person, place, or thing, from any sound, shape, angle, proportion, number, color, you name it. And so this is just to give you a sense of the type of tools we can use for this. And I want to clarify that these types of pendulums are not mental dowsing pendulums. We don't ask any mental questions with them. Mental dowsing is a completely separate technique. This is a matter of tuning in a specific vibrational quality and then that pulling the pendulum into a movement when you're detecting that from a vibrational field that you are analyzing. So Dr. Karim was able to identify the way that there is this vibrational spectrum that is universal in nature, that appears in sound, in shape, in color. All of these are different quality scales that express the exact same vibrational quality. That means you could get the same vibrational quality and the same basic energetic effect on a living system by using the correct shape or sound or color or motion or angle, etc. That's what you see here. So that means that you can find a similar energy effect that could be found by someone doing sound therapy as someone doing color therapy. And this allows us then to start unifying all these things together into a unified system. Now, you might recognize this and say, well, in a lot of ancient texts, they talk about the law of correspondences and that this sound is similar to this color, is similar to this angle, etc. The problem is, if you look at all these ancient books, they don't agree with each other. And through this method that Dr. Karim has created, we can empirically test and find what specific energy quality any of these types of inputs have, and we can see similarities between them. Now, we can see this, for example, in cymatics. all quality scales, color, shape, sound, angle, etc., because they all contain the exact same vibrational spectrum, they can all be converted from one scale to any other scale. So cymatics is a conversion of sound into shape. And that's what you see here. For those of you familiar with cymatics, you'll have seen these images. There's a lot of them on YouTube, etc., where you are making the invisible visible. The sound is making a very specific mandala form in shape. This is an ancient concept. They talk about this thousands of years ago in the Hindu tradition in India, but they didn't have the modern technology to actually show it the way it can be shown today in cymatics. And this is creating a whole new field of imaging and understanding what these invisible vibrations are. So on the right-hand side is an image from, once again, my friend John Stewart Reed at cymoscope.com, where he recently published an article where he was able to take a cymatics vibrational image of a healthy cell, which you see on the left-hand side of the right side image, and then show it compared to a cancerous cell's vibration that you see on the right side of that image. And so again, this is showing a conversion of sound into shape. So whether you're healing with sacred geometry, or you're healing with color, or you're healing with sound, or you're healing with number, etc., there's a universal system here that we can call upon to understand what's happening and what these energetic effects are. Again, Dr. Karim was able to add to the work of the French an understanding that in the actual center of the 12 bands of vibration, that again, the French gave names of color to identify all of these subtle energies that cannot be detected by electromagnetic equipment. Dr. Karim added, metaphorically, what I'm showing here as the gold dot in the middle of this spectrum of these 12 color bands. That's the universal harmonizing force, the BG3. This is indicated in ancient traditions by the point in the center of the circle. Everything comes from the 0 point, the zero-dimensional point. It's called a singularity in physics. And out of that, everything emanates. But the energetic quality of that center harmonizes and balances all living energy systems. And it can be used in conjunction with all the other colors, all the other vibrational qualities, and it helps to better harmonize and balance whatever those other polarized energies in color, sound, etc. you might be using to make them more effective when they are applied. Dr. Karim has also broken down the effects of different shapes. This is a particular system in which the biogeometry is able to look at the life effects coming from the geometric shape. And so, for example, this is one of the forms we use in biogeometry. And in the biogeometry trainings, we break it down to explain to you the resonance of every one of these shapes. Every one of these shapes has a particular resonance with one level of the human internal energy system and the formation of the planes of creation around it. Okay, I'm running short on time, so I'm going to move quickly here. And so this is related to knowledge in the ancient world that has been forgotten that Dr. Karim was able to reclaim in modern biogeometry. So for example, in the 1970s, there was a big pyramid power interest, and they talked about this mysterious energy coming from pyramids as a geometric shape. That's absolutely true, but what they didn't tell you is that an uncorrected pyramid has both beneficial and detrimental energy waves coming from it. That's why if you actually go to Egypt and you examine the pyramids at Giza Plateau, you would find there's a very slight half-a-degree indentation straight down the exact middle of all four faces of the major pyramids at Giza Plateau. And that actually neutralizes the detrimental energy component coming from the pyramid. And so particular modifications to the shape can drastically change the energetic quality that comes from it. This is an image of different biogeometry geometric energy emitters based on Dr. Karim's very advanced knowledge of the vibrational emanations and energetic qualities generated by different types of shapes and how they have to be put together in very specific formats to create the overall shape information and energetic effect that we're looking for. We go into a lot of detail about this in the biogeometry trainings, teaching people how they work and how to use them. So we're about out of time here before we go to questions and answers. So just very quickly, Dr. Karim was able to demonstrate the effectiveness of the energies coming off of these geometric shapes at the Egyptian National Research Center. That led to him being given his own group at the Egyptian National Research Center to study the effect of geometric shapes on life functions. And he was able to also develop a system where, using the types of tools that we talked about a moment ago, he could actually trace out the movement of the living energy inside a human body and find what the geometric energy flow patterns were in the human body to create different energetic effects. And he calls these biosignatures. These are simplified two-dimensional representations of three-dimensional flows of energy in the human body that can help to harmonize the flow of these energies inside the human energy field. That led to Dr. Karim being invited to participate in the Egyptian National Hepatitis C Research Project, where his group, which was simply given the medallion like you see toward the top of this illustration, with particular biosignatures on it, actually had the most successful outcome, a 90% normalization of enzyme levels, of anything being tested in this Egyptian National Hepatitis C Research Project done at Al-Azhar University in Cairo. It ended up better. It was number one in the entire project, ahead of interferon and all types of other things like that. Now, again, we make no medical claims for biogeometry. This was directly announced by the head of the pharmaceutical faculty at Al-Azhar University. Similarly, other types of research has been done, such as at Mansoura University Medical Department in Egypt, showing that there were effects of applying the energetic field of particular biosignatures to rats that had depressed serotonin function, and leading to the restoration of serotonin function, according to the medical researchers, that was close to, or in some cases better than, the application of modern serotonin pharmaceuticals. And Dr. Karim has applied this body of knowledge as well to help to clear electromagnetic pollution. It's a very powerful part of biogeometry. And this shows when Dr. Karim was in 2003 in Switzerland and helped to clear electromagnetic pollution from 2 entire Swiss villages. So we have a whole method within biogeometry to be able to harmonize these types of electromagnetic emanations. You see on the right-hand side here, this illustration by Dr. Karim is showing the way that by shaping a wave, by working with the wavelength with the amplitude, we can shape the wave to give us different energetic qualities and do what Dr. Karim calls humanize modern technology and make it so that it's harmonized in its effect on living energy fields. And Dr. Karim has also shown the way that this also applies to all types of living beings. And in this particular one, they were growing sweet potatoes in salt water on the Red Sea to see, is it possible to grow crops in salt water? What they found is, as you see at the top left of this illustration, when they tried to grow the sweet potato in pure salt water from the Red Sea, it would not grow. But looking at the bottom left, Dr. Karim, by infusing that salt water with energy from the geometric shape containers you see on the right hand of the illustration, was able to infuse these vibrational qualities into the salt water, and then it could grow the sweet potatoes, actually better than grown in fresh water. And they removed no salt from the water. And that just gives you a sense of what's behind this energetic science of the biogeometry. Now I'm a little bit over time, and I'm going to go back now to Manisha and take some questions that may have come in.
Yes, thank you, Robert. That was fantastic. We've got quite a few questions. So just in advance, I'm going to apologize to anybody whose question I don't get to, because there's a few there. So let's start with from the beginning. Okay, do you think ozone could help with blood clotting issues as well?
I actually don't know the answer to that question. I haven't looked at it in application with blood clotting. But if you start looking into the literature, you're going to find that there are some very large medical textbooks that have been written, particularly from Italy, translated into English, that go into tremendous detail about all the things that they've used it for. So to find that type of answer, a lot of that research has already been done. And so look for some of these in America, we can actually just put some of these search terms related to ozone into a book search on Amazon, and some of these books will come up. And so with a little bit of research, you can find the state of the knowledge today related to those types of questions.
Fantastic. I've got a comment here. Biontology, founded by Johann Boswinkel, is a modality that uses light as a carrier wave to balance biophotons. So thank you for that comment. Another question.
I would just quickly add to that's wonderful, and thank you for sharing that. I'd also just mention that Dr. Peter Mandel developed in Germany color puncture based on his direct research with Fritz Popp. So after Fritz Popp identified biophotons, Peter Mandel did work with them to see how we could apply this therapeutically. So particularly in Germany, there is a strong lineage here coming out of the original German research in biophotons to find ways to apply it therapeutically. Thank you.
Excellent. We've got another comment here. What happens to the shoreline BG3 when the shoreline under heavy construction, i.e. where steel and cement buildings are erected? Now, I'm not sure if you got that clearly.
I don't think I did.
No, I might skip that one just so that we can keep on the move. Should food grade hydrogen peroxide be used in a nebulizer?
Again, I'm not a medical doctor. I'm making no medical claims. I will tell you what I have done myself and what there is a track record for in naturopathic circles going back long, long time. And that is that I know people in naturopathic circles or use it for themselves that have used just the straight hydrogen peroxide, that's USP hydrogen peroxide like you buy for cuts. And they say they've used it with no problem. I personally, for my own use, I always try to use the food grade, just as pure as possible. And for myself or anyone that I have any concern has any type of lung sensitivity, then I always recommend, read about it first, make your own decision here, but I would reduce it below the 3% and I would buffer it in a saline solution. And that makes it very, very gentle when it's being applied through a nebulizer. But never go beyond the 3%.
Excellent. That's great. There's also a question about, is there a brand or company that you can recommend for the hydrogen peroxide for the nebulizer?
I can't. Again, from everyone I know that's worked with it, and after I published my article at the very beginning of the troubles last year, there then began to be more and more articles being published about it by other people, including medical doctors, talking about their successful use of it. And it really does come down to, at that time, it was whatever you could find. Because at that time, all the hydrogen peroxide was off the shelves. You couldn't find any anywhere. At this point, resupply is back. There's no one particular company, as long as it's USP grade or it's food grade, that's fine. But again, pay attention, because sometimes they'll sell it in a bottle at 35% or 12%, and you're going to have to then dilute it further. I wouldn't ever do it beyond a 3% concentration.
Excellent. Thanks for that. Is there a way to combine the biogeometry shapes with color therapy for therapy uses?
I'm sure that there is. So what Dr. Karim has done in biogeometry is to create a system that allows us to detect the specific energetic qualities that are present in any person, place, or thing, and also to be able to then evaluate what vibrational inputs will be the most effective for that system to bring it up to its highest level. And so once you understand the way of being able to test these energetic qualities, you can actually put any number of different things together. Even in biogeometry, we use different biogeometry shapes and patterns together in different combinations based on what tests the best for their energetic emanations. For people that work with color therapy, sound therapy, etc., it would just be a matter of using that same system of evaluation to see how to combine these things together.
That's excellent. There's also a question, can you describe the detection method a little bit more? And I think that's just what you're touching on now.
Mm-hmm. So the detection method was the one first generated by the French. The deeper background of this takes a little bit of a while to describe, but there has been found in ancient archaeological digs from ancient Egypt a huge number of what are these types of really clay pendulums that have a specific shape to them They're called the Wadj pendulum. If you look it up, it's W-A-D-J. But if you look up the French work, they call it the Egyptian pendulum. Anyway, these things are thousands of years old. They've been found all over digs, ancient Egypt. And it was an early form that the Egyptian used to be able to detect these types of energies because it creates a penetrating carrier wave from the tip. And then the French found out about this through Jesuit-trained French priests. Now, this is not some strange conspiracy theory I came up with. This is actually based on the books written by the Jesuit-trained French priests, the best known of which is Abbé Mermet, who wrote a book called Je Père, How I Work, that became an international bestseller. One of the few books of the French that you can find today easily that talks about this type of research. Dr. Karim has been able to advance this with his modern equipment so that you can actually tune in on the top of these types of pendulums that I showed you, the particular angular quality that detects the different band energies. And then we teach people in the courses how to be able to then use that. And you'll actually feel through resonance when that particular band quality it's set for matches the band quality of something in an external field, it will literally start to push or pull the pendulum in the hand. And so that's the beginning of it. Then it goes to deeper and deeper levels where there are energy measurement, detection, and measuring rulers, some of them actually based on patterns off the old Egyptian temple walls that allow us to detect a whole variety of other energetic qualities.
Oh, that's excellent. Just from that point, I'm just going to ask you at this moment a little bit more about your courses. You've just touched on it there. Can you just give us a brief description what is actually available to people to do training with you?
Great, thank you very much. So in terms of what we've been describing here, the going into depth on the original French work is in a series that I have available on my website called Vibrational Testing and Healing. And that's in 3 different classes that make up the series, and you can take the classes separately or take them all together. And the course within that series that's called the Universal Vibrational Spectrum is the one that goes into that vibrational spectrum, identifies the powers of every one of the bands in the spectrum, and gives people experience in actually detecting it and experiencing it energetically. Then in the work of biogeometry, the work of biogeometry with Dr. Karim is a whole nother level on top of the French work. And Dr. Karim built on the French work to take it to undreamt of levels that are absolutely amazing. So the biogeometry work is only available through the biogeometry courses. And it used to be only live courses, but it became switched into an online training system just last year because we had to stop all the live courses with COVID. And so that's been a great benefit in the last year that now we can offer these things online. So there's a foundation training in biogeometry that I have links to for my teaching it on my website. And you can also look online. There are other teachers of it around the world. There's not a whole lot of us, but there are a few of us. And on my website, vesca.org, I have links for the foundation training and the advanced training. And we also sell the biogeometry tools from Egypt. And Dr. Karim himself is about to release at the end of this year, early next year, a whole nother level of biogeometry that's never been revealed before that he calls the inner school of biogeometry. That'll require the completion of at least the foundation training, maybe foundation and advanced, to participate in that. Then the other things I have on my website are related to spiritual science, which gets into the deeper spiritual teachings and practices of traditions all over the world, and also vibrational science, which has to do with other types of applications, including the work that I do with minerals, crystals, etc., and applying a more advanced vibrational science to them to move that whole body of working to a higher level.
That's fantastic, Robert. It sounds fascinating, and I'm definitely interested myself. There's a question here. I'm still going flat tack to try to get all the questions in, but let's give it a go. Is it true that human DNA is like a black hole for light?
I actually don't know the answer to that one. I'd be very interested to see the research that demonstrates that. I definitely do believe from research that's been done by people like Dr. Glenn Ryan, he's done a lot of work where he tests energetic fields based on its effect on DNA outside of the human body. And certain types of energetic fields will help to wind the DNA or unwind the DNA. And so Dr. Glenn Rhine's research is very interesting in that regard. As far as the black hole concept, it wouldn't surprise me that there is a type of 0 point inside of it that connects to that original unified field energy. And in that sense, I would say that definitely biogeometry has shown that to be the case. But in more physics terms related to a black hole, I'm not aware of the particular body of research on that.
Excellent. Thank you. How can you get a cymatics shape from a cancer cell? You showed a slide about that a bit earlier on.
For that, I recommend people go to cymoscope.com, which is John Stuart Reid's website. And he should have a link on his website to the article that he published just recently, including these pictures about the research methods that they have. Now, John works in a particular method of making cymatics images that uses water to be able to capture the vibration. But one of the advances on earlier cymatics methods that John has done is he has depth in the image, meaning it's not just like on the surface of something, like you throw a rock in a pond and it creates a surface ripple. In this, it actually creates a vibrational matrix down through the depth and not just on the surface. And so he's got very advanced imaging methods for this. But as for the exact specifics of it, then I recommend cymoscope.com.
Excellent. Does shungite have a role in biogeometry?
In biogeometry, we primarily focus on the shape information because it's biogeometry. And so really everything that we're focusing on in the trainings is with shape. Then it's another level to start going into the materials. And so in the ancient world, they understood that the qualities of materials are another modular component that adds to the shape-caused wave. So if you're going to create a pillar for a temple, the pillar shape is going to have a specific energetic emanation regardless of the material. But if you use a really high-quality material like the cedars of Lebanon for like the Temple of Solomon, now that's going to add in another modular component of higher quality to the vibrational field that is generated by the shape information. Now that also applies to minerals. And so I've done a lot of work in minerals and crystals for what their particular vibrational emanations are and how to combine them together and project their energies more efficiently. And so shungite is quite remarkable. I don't have much time to say anything about it. I'll just give one particular pointer, and that is one of the reasons that shungite became quite well known for certain types of energy harmonizing purposes is that it was said that it is one of the few natural sources, if not the only natural source, of the perfected carbon-60 or C60, the buckyball structure. And I do want to say that having examined the original research findings from Russia, that is true, but it's only true for elite shungite. Shungite that is really 90% pure carbon or higher, that has the natural C60 structures. The stuff that's much denser, darker, gray, maybe 30%, that doesn't have the buckyball structures. But within the minerals of the world is a type of library of incredible vibrations, I believe from higher planes, and they literally are the crystallization of these fantastic vibratory sources into the physical plane where they become stabilized, where we can then use and apply them.
Oh, that's fantastic. Here's an interesting question. Can biogeometry mitigate vaccine side effects?
We are not going to make any claims regarding biogeometry related to COVID or to vaccines. And I think the reasons for that should be obvious to most people. It's a perfectly fair question, but again, we make no medical claims whatsoever for biogeometry, and I'm not a medical doctor. And everything that we've done with biogeometry in the past, where I've told about things about the hepatitis C research project, the Egyptian National project at their research center, and these types of things, these were all done in universities. They were all done with medical doctors. And the only thing we report is what the medical doctors report. So we make no claims whatsoever for biogeometry and any illness.
Excellent. What is your favorite personal tool for remediating EMF radiation?
Well, there are so many of those. And of course, in biogeometry, there's an entire system of particular shape-based tools to be able to remediate electromagnetic radiation. And of course, other people will use tools from other sources. And in the classical world, often various types of stones were used to amplify beneficial energy fields or to modify detrimental energy fields. So there's many different things that can do it. The thing that I think is really valuable with the biogeometry, in addition to its specific set of tools for this, is that it actually teaches you the techniques where whatever you're going to apply for the remediation, you can detect whether or not it's actually effective. And that's one of the things often missing today with many types of electromagnetic remediation tools. They may be effective or they may not, but there's no method that comes with it where you can actually detect it. And so with biogeometry, we do have that. So I don't have any one tool to point to. If you would ask me what's my favorite tool in the mineral realm, I could give you one. One of my favorite tools in the shape realm, I could give you one. But again, it's a very vast topic.
Excellent. Do satellite emissions affect BG3? Maybe you could actually explain what BG3 is very briefly as well.
So the BG3 is actually the energy quality of the center that has a type of universal balancing and harmonizing force. It really is the unified field energy. In our discussions in biogeometry about the cosmology of how all these things created, that Dr. Karim created within his physics of quality work, and also within an article called What is Energy? We discussed there that the energy of the BG3 is really what we have in the original singularity. What physics calls the singularity, where there was no polarity, there was no differentiation, everything was one. In that state, that has an energetic quality to it that harmonizes and balances and unites everything. That's really the energy of what the BG3 is. Now, as we move out from there to the actual created world, within every center in the created world, the center of any geometric shape will have at least a little bit of this energetic quality. It's like microcosm and macrocosm. And so this energy quality is present throughout creation within the center of things, but it can also be generated by specific number qualities, specific shapes, specific colors, specific sounds, or for shapes, sound, numbers, etc., that do not generate by themselves the BG3 energy quality. We can combine them together in such a way that through a type of geometric alchemy or energy alchemy, they will generate this BG3 universal harmonizing balancing force. Quick example, if you take a look at Dr. Karim's public book called Back to a Future for Mankind, Biogeometry, on the cover of the book, there is a large pyramid superimposed on the image of a modern city. And if you were to test that cover, the cover is giving this BG3 energy through design. And if you actually test the slope angle on the pyramid drawn on the cover, it by itself does not give BG3. If you actually test the color of the cover, it does not give BG3. But if you test the combination of the angle of the pyramid with the background color, together they generate BG3. So biogeometry is really a design science. And using that, you can use any of the things we've talked about, any quality scale, shape, sound, angle, color, motion, number, you name it, and find ways to not only test their energy, but how to combine them to create very beneficial energetic fields.
Oh, that's wonderful. I think we might wrap up, but we have had a couple of questions, a couple of requests here. Mr. Gilbert, are there any promos or discount codes you're offering today to enroll or purchase some of your online training courses? And I'll just say that there was also a comment, someone raving about your wonderful courses, saying how good they are. I'm just letting the audience actually know that. I'm sorry I've put you on the spot there. You may
No, that's absolutely fine. It's absolutely fine. And I appreciate the person taking the course saying that. Thank you. And we don't at the moment have a particular discount for any of the courses, but we run particular promotions and discounts on a regular basis. And so if you go to our homepage at Vesica, V as in Victor, ESICA, vesica.org, then on the homepage is a place that you can sign up for our newsletter. And it's through our newsletter that we offer all types of promotions and discounts for different things.
Oh, that's wonderful. And I think we'll wrap it up there because you've been very generous with your time. You've given us a whole hour and so appreciate your work. It's just touching the tip of the iceberg of an absolutely fascinating subject. So we look forward to hopefully quite a few of us diving deeper into this realm. So thank you, Robert.
Well, thank you so much. I've very much enjoyed my visits to Australia in the past. I think the International Light Association is doing wonderful work. I think the work with light is so central and so important. I really appreciate your inviting me to this, and I appreciate your inviting me to the live conference in Perth in October. So thank you again.
Yes. Thank you so much, Robert. And thank you everyone who's in the audience for turning up. That's wonderful to have you with us. So all the best to everyone. Thank you. And bye for now.